to our featured reader and our featured reader coordinator, Mary Krakow, is going to introduce them. And this is also the person you want to talk to if you want to be a reader at the holiday.
I'm that important. So each month we have a member come up and read something they've written in a supportive environment. And so I will introduce tonight's reader. Scott Nelson recently moved to Bend in August of 2021 with his wife of 27 years, Lisa Marie. They have 3 adult children, Joshua, Olivia, and Rosalind, all in their 20s. He is director of imaging service lines for St. Charles Health System and has worked in healthcare for over 20 years. Scott holds an associate's in radiography, bachelor's in education, and master's in healthcare administration. Passions include family, community, outdoor everything, music, dogs, dark chocolate, strong coffee, reading, and writing. Favorite quotes are a toss-up between Steve Prefontaine, "To give anything less than your best is to sacrifice the gift," and Soren Kierkegaard, "Life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards." Though Scott liked the way his late father said it best, life must be lived forward, but can only be understood backward. Please welcome Scott Nelson.
Thank you, Mary. And my wife, Lisa, is sitting in the back. And technically speaking, we're not married for 27 years until December 21st of this year. This is entitled Water Fight. I do not think the measure of a civilization is how tall its buildings of concrete are, but rather how well its people have learned to relate to the environment and fellow man. Chippewa. The early afternoon sunlight shimmered off the lake's surface. My young little Chippewa, all of 1,551 days, searched the end of his pole and whispered, "When they gonna bite?" I shrugged my shoulders and told the young warrior to tighten his line, stay alert, and prepare for a mighty catch. He did as I said, turning the reel until the line was taut, and then continued munching on his peanut butter and jelly sandwich. We sat in silence for a while, the two of us lost in our hopes and dreams, the slight breeze whispering secrets as we waited, each hoping for a fish to rise. The boy's black hair whisked in the wind like the cattails near the shoreline, a synchronized rhythm of movement that seemed to connect him to the earth more than me. His skin glistened in the sunlight. I thought it must have absorbed all the beautiful colors of the world to turn such a brilliant brown. I hoped my own skin, fair most of the year, would tan with the summer rays. He smiled with his missing front tooth, and his missing front tooth told me stories of change and growth and hopes and dreams and what would happen next. From his smile, I imagined him to say, "I bet I can tell you a joke to laugh your ass off. I'm going to learn to ride a bike, wait and see. Someday when I'm older, I'll find a girl and I'll kiss her behind a maple tree and I'll carve our names in the bark. Those names will be outlined with a heart and an arrow. The arrow will be from my past. It will be a Chippewa arrow, one from the world of our dream catchers. That arrow will always protect us and guide us through this maze of life. Then you will remember our people, you will remember me, and I will always be smiling back at you with my 4-year-old smile, the one with the missing tooth. I will thank you for this fishing trip, for the first and only. I will tell you it's okay, I'm okay. I will remind you that my name is Robin, named by my mother, named after the bird that's so free from this earth, from its rules and laws and justifications. I will tell you that I'm freer now than ever. Though the accident tragic, I will tell you that there is so much more, and that there are water fights in heaven too. What do you think will happen, he asked. I told him I didn't know as we watched 2 rafts by the island drift toward one another, each packed with college students, a brilliant mixture of young men and women, all poised in motionless tension. His eyes narrowed as he smiled back at me. He whispered, "Water fight, water fight." I chuckled at the possibility and repeated his words. We chanted together then, Like two warriors beating our drums on the warpath, we blended our voices in one and increased our volume, each with a successive chant. Water fight, water fight, water fight, water fight. The paddles soon cocked back as the rafts approached each other like two battleships of yore. We chanted again, this time with our arms raised above our heads, our voices reverberating across the water like skipping rocks. Water fight, water fight, water fight, water fight. The paddles released as if shot from cannons, the tension erupting across the lake into laughter and screams and excitement as they soaked each other. We yelled out in triumph and slapped each other high fives. We cheered at our doing, our imagination, our hopefulness, the endless possibilities of the here and now and what lie ahead. How mysterious life can sometimes be as we shared one of those moments that remains forever. We spent hours at the lake that day and never caught a single fish. Yet of all my trips throughout the years, this one remains. Whenever I go fishing now, I can't help but think of water fights. God, how I miss my young little nephew. Thank you.
That was beautiful, Scott. That was a beautiful story, beautiful imagery, and I love the way you use metaphors. I was reminded this morning that my neighborhood was invaded by robins this morning. Did anybody see all the robins out today? They must be passing through or decided to come live here now. But every single tree was full of robins this morning. All right. We are gonna get on with the show here. So Janis Thomas is the best-selling author of domestic suspense novels, What Remains True and All That's Left of Me, as well as 3 critically acclaimed humorous women's fiction novels, Something New, Sweet Nothings, and Say Never. Her latest book from Blackstone is a psychological suspense called Finding Grace, which Publishers Weeklies calls Engrossing, and Kirkus calls Authentically Creepy. That's a nice thing, to authentically creepy, right? Yeah, that's a nice one. Janis is a popular workshop leader and speaker and a passionate writing advocate. She lives in Southern California with her terrific husband, amazing teenagers, and 2 crazy dogs. You can find Janis more information at www.janis, Janis, Thomas, Thomas.com. And Janis is also going to do a workshop on Saturday, and her workshop is called The Storyteller's Toolbox. She'll take us step by step through key elements of that make for engaging reads, such as genre, theme, message, story structure, character arc, story beats, and many other tools that will raise your story to the next level. That's a full-on writing class. That's everything you need to know about writing. So looking forward to that. And without further ado, here's Janis.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That's going to fall over, so I'm going to put that back here. Thank you all for having me, Southern California Writers, Central Oregon Writers Guild. I'm really, really honored to be here. Thank you, Trish and Mike, for inviting me to speak, and thank you all for being here. Scott, that was really beautiful, and gave me that thing that you want to give your readers, right? That right to the heart. I want to start by saying that this is a little character insight into Janis Thomas. I never get sick. I maybe get sick once every 3 or 4 years, and coincidentally, I got really sick last week. I'm no longer contagious, but my voice is a little rough, so please bear with me. My writing career has been a roller coaster, lots of ups and downs, and full disclosure, when I started my writing career, when people asked, where are you in your writing, I would try to self-aggrandize. I would try to make myself more shiny than I was. I added sparkles to the reality because we all want cred, especially new writers. That's what we are really craving is cred. And now I have some cred, and I'm going to take the sparkles off of it and tell you my ups and downs, the good, the bad, and the ugly of writing. And at the end of the day, this is another insight into Janis as a writer. No matter how dark or heavy my books get, I always have an optimistic view, and I have an ending that gives hope. So I'm here to give you hope too as writers, okay? So if you do take my Storyteller's Toolbox on Saturday, or if you've ever been in a workshop with me, you will know that I am absolutely, violently, vehemently opposed to backstory, especially in the first chapter. But my writing journey needs some backstory just to give you some context about who I am. Unlike a lot of writers, my childhood was really great. I grew up in Southern California. I had parents that recognized my creative side, and they were really supportive. They didn't try to force me to be an engineer, which is a really good thing because I would have been a terrible engineer. And I had great champions in both my parents, especially my mom. She was really my greatest cheerleader. And so over the course of this talk tonight, I'm going to give you some tips and advice. And my first bit of advice is to find yourself a cheerleader. Find yourself a cheerleader that cheers your writing on, that goes with you on your writer's journey. They don't have to be a writer. They can be a writer. In fact, everyone in this room could be somebody's cheerleader. If you can't find one, pay one, right? But get someone who's going to root you on, who's going to be there that you can call them and say, I don't know. And they'll be like, no, you can do this. You can do this. That's my first bit of advice for you, because cheerleaders are great to have in every aspect of our lives, right? But writing is tough, so especially that. So get a cheerleader. Anyway, I had one in my mom. I was the last of 4 children, and I was a mistake. So I was far away from my 3 older siblings, which meant that I spent a lot of time alone. To keep myself company, I would make up friends and scenarios and stories and situations, and I talked to myself all the time. And I know that some people thought I was like a weird little kid, My mom would have friends over, and I'd be in the backyard going, la la la, oh you, oh no you, no you, no you, and they're like, is Janis okay? Does she need meds? But that was my first foray into storytelling, that creativity of creating situations and friends, and it really did amuse me a lot. I had a great time. I was very entertained by myself. I was also an avid reader. I loved books. I loved all genres of books. I loved experiencing things that I had never experienced and going to places I had never gone to and likely never will go to. I could live 1,000 different lives through a book. And that got me, I really got the bug on that one. It was like, I want to do this. I want to take people away. And I knew nothing about nothing at that point, but I got the bug. So that's another bit of advice I'm going to say is read. Read books. You'll have people tell you, read your genre. And I challenge you to read every genre, because there's certain structure to a good story. And that a good story is a good story across all genres, right? So read every kind of story you can read. Every kind, and it's, I understand that we're busy. I'm busy, you're busy, we're all busy, and we have to make time for writing, and we really also should make time for reading, because it's the more you read, the better you're going to become. I was attracted to strong female characters like Nancy Drew and every single character in a Judy Blume book. I was raised in a family of 2 boys and 2 girls, and I love my dad, not his fault. He was raised in a very patriarchal environment at that time. And so in my household, it was the boys versus the girls, and the girls were, the boys were golden because they were boys, and the girls, not so much. I mean, we were great. It was great childhood, but there was still that idea. And that was something that my sister and I really fought hard against with my mother's help. And so I think that's possibly what attracted me to these really strong female characters, like, because I can kick butt too. Okay, I'm a girl, but I can kick butt. So, yeah, that resonated with me, and that carried through into my writing career. Because although I do write male characters, most of my books are female leads and strong character-driven females. So I wrote my first book when I was 6. It's 9 words long. I've expanded. Sometimes I miss my frugal 6-year-old self. I wrote in high school, but I was also a high school student. And of course, this is before computers. And so I was writing on yellow legal pads. I was writing on note pay. My dad was a printer, so he would make beautiful lined paper for us kids. And I have 2 boxes of story beginnings, just handwritten, pencil. Some of them are in pencil, some are in pen. Remember the eraser pens? I don't even know if they exist anymore, but they're eraser pens. And I have crates, lots and lots of beginnings. I'm a little bit nervous to go back and even read them because I'll just be so cringy. But I was in high school, and so I didn't really understand what living the writer's life was. Thank you. You have just a lovely smile and aura. Thank you. So after high school, I went to UCLA, and I majored in theater, film, and television. And I realized at the time that although I wasn't writing a lot, I was writing a little bit, but I was starting to tell stories in a different way, not just with words on paper, but on the stage, and so and on the screen. And so that was sort of my outlet at the time, although I was keeping writing. Now, I had always wanted to be a writer since I was 6 years old. I wanted to do a lot of things over the course of my life, and I've done a lot of things over the course of my life, but writing is the one thing that I have consistently done since I was 6. So it was the one thing that always accompanied me wherever I went. Now, at UCLA, I got my first computer. It was one of those Mac towers with the screen like this big and the floppy disks. Do you guys remember? I mean, some of you too young, but I loved that thing. No more hand cramps from writing till you just can't write anymore. But the screen was so small, you could only really, luckily my eyesight was a lot better back then. So after I went to UCLA, after I graduated, I moved to New York. I was pursuing theater at that time. I started writing plays. I did an off Broadway show that happened to be about the Manson family. That was interesting storytelling. I did a national tour of an off-Broadway show called Forbidden Broadway, which was 6 months of one-night stands all over the country. I didn't have a lot of time to write, but I always had a notebook at hand in case I had a story idea, in case I had a bit of dialogue that I wanted to write, just in case. Another form of storytelling on stage. When I got back to New York, I had to, support myself. I got a job as a bartender. And just as a little sidebar, if you ever are in need of story ideas, get a job behind a bar and buy your patrons drinks because it's almost like therapy. It's great. But you also have to change the names because they'll come after you. Anyway, my sister and I formed a band. It was an alternate rock band. Once again, another form of storytelling. We wrote all original music. We did some covers, but mostly original songs. And I was telling stories with my songs. And that was something that was laying yourself open and being vulnerable, because these are my words that have come out of my heartbreak or my situations that have been less than, you write songs, heartache is a really resounding theme, right? And you're up there and you're delivering it in real time. And that actually gave me a lot of courage for when I started writing to be able to lay myself open and really write from the heart. Because if I can stand up on stage and sing to you about how someone beat the heck out of me emotionally, then I can actually do it when I'm writing fiction. And that, to me, helped my fiction resonate much more than it would have if I hadn't have had that experience. I was still writing off and on, but you're busy, you're 20-something in New York City. So at that time, I still wasn't ready or prepared to live the writer's life. Still didn't really comprehend what that meant. So I also met my husband in New York. He's from New Jersey, although you would never know it. We live in California now. No one knows he's from New Jersey unless he's really mad or he's had a few too many shots. And then forget about it. Jersey comes out. And so we moved back to California, which I wanted to do because my parents were growing older and I wanted to be near them. And I'm so glad that I did. And now we're getting close to where my career as a writer began. So we started a family, and I was lucky enough in the early times of having my children that I was able to stay home with them. And then as they started to grow and as they were entering preschool and kindergarten, I realized that I was going to have these blocks of time to myself. Now, I needed to work because I'd always worked. So I needed to work so I could either get a job at Target, which I actually applied for, and even with a college degree, they rejected me. I still shop there. I don't hold it against them. Or I could commit finally to living the writer's life. And I was lucky enough and fortunate enough to be able to do that. So here's where it all starts. I am 42 years old, and I know people say P.D. James started writing in her 70s, right? So, it's never too late, but at least I did. I was having a sense of running out of time. Like, if I don't do this now, is it going to happen? Will it ever happen for me? You don't run out of time. You can start anytime, trust me, but I know that feeling tends to happen. So I actually went online to just try to get some guidance and input, and I found NaNoWriMo, National Novel Writing Month. Is anybody doing NaNoWriMo this month? Yes? Are you doing NaNoWriMo? Yeah, and so do we all know what it is? Everybody knows National Novel Writing Month. It's writing a 50,000 word novel in a month, and it was like the light bulb and the lightning and flashing in the sky and because this was exactly what I needed. This was exactly the thing that was going to help me start living the writer's life. It was something that held me accountable, that forced me to get my butt in the seat every day and produce a certain amount of words. Now, I know a lot of big best-selling authors that don't do word count. They write until they write till the end of the scene. And I have no problem. Anybody's process, if it works for you, that's great. But this one happened to work for me because it was a measurement. It was, you know what, at the end of the day, so I think it's like 1,337 words a day. Okay, I was off a little bit, 300 words off. I just pulled that out. I mean, I'm not math. No, not good. I write, not math. Thank you. So it was a certain amount of words that I could not even just, okay, I reached my NaNoWriMo goal for the day, but also when I started today, I didn't have those 1,667 words. And that's something. That's something to be proud of. That's something to say, I did that today. And I also got my kids to school, and I got them fed, and I got them dressed, and I got them, or I went to work, and I got this done, I got this project done, and I also got this done. And it kept me going back into my seat. So NaNoWriMo was really great for me, and it got me started. And I won in that I wrote 50,000 words that month, but I have way too many words, so it was just not the end of that novel. So it took me 100,000 words, and I finished it the second week of December. And that was my first novel, Something New. So then I had this, oh, and I should tell you that when I started NaNoWriMo, I didn't know what to write. I had been reading a lot of chick lit, but I was 42. So chick lit is like 20-something, 30-something, the young gal, single, finds Mr. Right, falls in love, they live happily ever after. Okay, it's mindless entertainment and I love it and they've got message and heart, but I'm 42. I've already met Mr. Right. Sometimes he ain't so right. I wanted to read about someone in my situation. The mom who's now dealing with all this, still love you, but, wow, the way you blow your nose, so that's what I decided to do. I decided to take my life and, not my life, but I wrote this book that is called Humorous Women's Fiction. So it's not chick lit, it's not about the 20-something or the 30-something. It's about someone who's in my stage of life. And that was something new. So now I had this 100,000 word novel that my mom, by the way, thought was fantastic. But now what do I, and my aunt and my sister, all my champions and cheerleaders, right? And then I thought, now what? Now what do I do? I have this manuscript. I think it's pretty good. I don't know, but I think it's pretty good. Now what? And once again, I went online and I found the Southern California Writers Conference, which is San Diego, February, September it's in Irvine. This happened to be in February. And you could do advanced submissions to agents. And I thought, okay, Writers Conference. I didn't even know this existed, right? I had no idea. I'm like, okay, I'm in. It's an hour and a half away. I'll stay at the hotel. If I ever sell this book, it'll be a tax write-off. But and I went to the conference, and I met with a couple of agents, and they asked for the full manuscript, which was very exciting. And I also, like you all in this room, I found a community, a writers' community, which at the time was so important to me because although I had my champion, my mom, I didn't have a lot of people in my life, especially those who I lived in the house with, who understood what being a writer was all about. I would talk to my husband about, oh my gosh, this great thing happened with my character today. She talked to me. She told me what was happening with the story. She told me the next thing. And it's just like slack-jawed. I don't know what you're talking about. You all know what I'm talking about, right? That moment in your story where the character starts telling you what's going on. Isn't that the greatest moment of your writing when you get into that part of the story? And I found people, and I could say just what I just said, and then go, oh my gosh, yeah, I love that. So finding the Writers' Conference, including my friend in the back of the room, Laura, say hi, Laura, was one of the greatest gifts that I've ever experienced in my writer's journey. So I got an agent. What happened was I submitted to an agent, and she said, give me 6 weeks. And the next week, she called me at 7 in the morning. She was on New York time and said, I just spent all day yesterday, all through the night reading this. I would like to sell this book. And I said, yeah, okay. Woo, this is great. And 2 weeks later, she had a deal with Penguin USA for my first book, Something New. So it felt like an overnight success, except that I was, writing since I was 6 years old. So it was a really long overnight success, but it was great. And I was really thrilled. And I thought, my life is about to change completely. I have a book deal with Penguin. I'm going to be on Oprah. Oprah was still on at the time. They're going to pick me for their book club, and I'm going to get a helicopter, and a limo's going to come pick me up, and the phone calls. The phone never rang. But I was also still writing. I wrote my second book, Sweet Nothings, about a baker. And sure enough, Penguin bought Sweet Nothings. And I was so excited. Oh my gosh, okay, now I have 2 book deals with Penguin. Now the phone's gonna ring. Now Oprah's gonna have me on her show. Now I'm gonna get the helicopter. Well, as you can see, that didn't happen because I didn't fly in here on a helicopter. So what I found out later, after my books came out and did not do well, not many book sales, was that while my books were being produced and published and sent out into the world, Penguin was quietly merging with Random House. And Penguin had to show losses to Random House. And so I was one of the many authors caught in the cracks that were not given any marketing, that were not given much distribution, and we never knew why until later, until the merger went through. So my third book in the series, Say Never, we submitted it to Penguin, but my book sales were not good, and so Penguin didn't buy it. And so all of that excitement and all of that celebration, even not having the helicopter, but just having this incredible experience of being published by Penguin, it dashed my hopes. And I found myself thinking, what am I going to do? I had a book come out in 2012. I had a book come out in 2013. Now I had this manuscript that I had edited and it was ready to go, and Penguin didn't want it, and I wanted to have another book out. So I made this decision to put it out myself, independently. I made the conscious decision to self-publish, knowing that I didn't know anything about self-publishing. I didn't care at that point. All I wanted was to have a book come out because that's what we do. We write. It was not good because I am not a publisher. That's a great thing to learn as a writer. If you are going to self-publish, this is another piece of advice for you. If you are going to publish independently, make sure that you find people that can help you. If you have to pay them, pay them. Find people who have done it well. Now, another thing, and this is a piece of advice that I got, that I learned. I sold something new in July of 2011, and it didn't come out until May of 2011. It did not come out until November of 2012. It was an 18-month process for that book to be released. And that is because when you are traditionally published, they put your book through the ringer. They drill down to the minutia. First of all, there's a broad developmental edit. And you go back and forth with your developmental editor. You go back once, twice, 3 times, sometimes 4 times. And then it goes through the copy editing process. Once, twice, 3 times, 4 times. And then even after all of that, you'll get an Excel spreadsheet with all of the things that still need to be fixed. Okay? And then they go through cover design. They go through interior book design. So these are a lot of things, and a lot of people, and I respect people who self-publish, but I don't respect the writers that just want to zip through the process and get it done. If you are going to self-publish, advice, make sure that you put your book through the same ringer that a traditional publisher will put it through. Because this is your legacy as a writer, right? Every book that you put out, you need to be 100% proud of, and you need to be 100% sure that there are no errors or spelling mistakes or grammar, just really, truly, because there are a lot of people that will read a book that is not, and they will know it's not edited correctly, and they will not read another book by that writer. I'm sure that's happened to all of you, where you read like the sample and there's like mistakes. Do you go back and buy that book? Never. Okay, so I did publish Say Never, and I published my murder mystery, Murder in a Minor. And I did that because I wanted to have books out, knowing that I wasn't good at this, but I still wanted a traditional deal. That was still what I wanted. I couldn't get it with these. They were turned down. So I did my due diligence. I put them through the ringer. I had them professionally edited. I had lots of eyes on, and I put them out into the world. Now, I'm jumping ahead, but I do want to tell you that I didn't sell a lot of books. But after the fact, when my 2 Lake Union books came out, I found that I got more book sales than I had in the 4 years that they had been out in 6 months. Because people read my books from Lake Union and then went back because they wanted to find more. And that was why I did it. So people would have more books to go to in the event that I got traditionally published again. So I was just starting my 4th humorous women's fiction book. It was the 4th in the series. Now, Something New, Sweet Nothings, and Say Never, they're standalone books, and they are connected loosely by a thread. And I had one more book that was going to bring all of the characters together, and that was Saving Nora. And I had written the first 2 pages, and then my mom passed away. And my mom was not only my greatest cheerleader, but she was my best friend. And she was my first phone call in the morning and my last phone call at night that sometimes drove my husband crazy. God bless him, he put up with it. And so it was devastation. And I did not feel like writing funny anymore. And so even though I knew my agent was waiting for another humorous women's fiction that maybe she could possibly find some publisher to publish it, I couldn't write funny. And so I tried to write through my grief. And I wrote a book that took me to a completely different place and opened me up as a writer in many, many different ways. And I think back to being on stage and laying myself open. And with this book, I really, really felt like I laid myself open. It was called at the time Disassembled Me. The publisher hated that. But I actually, when I finished it, I thought, I know this is really different. I sent it to my agent. I don't even think she read the first chapter. I think she read the first page, maybe the second page. And she said, Janis, I just don't know what to do with this. What do you do as a writer? What do you do? Can anyone answer the question? What do you do as a writer when you get that feedback? Keep writing. Yay, give her a hand. Yes, Denise gets a hand. Yes, you keep writing. You keep writing. No matter what, if you have it in your heart and your soul to write, then you must keep writing. If you have the soul of a storyteller, you must keep writing. And that's what I did. And I wrote another book through my grief, and that was What Remains True. Now, What Remains True, actually the seed of that started the day that my mom passed away. She passed away, luckily enough, she passed away at home where she wanted to pass away. And she had been fighting cancer for a while, but it was still a shock because we thought she was in remission. And I was the last person to arrive at the house, and everyone in my family was there. Everyone in my family was there, including my father that had been divorced from my mother for 27 years. And through my devastation of how am I going to get through it? How am I going to get through it? How am I going to live without my mom? I realized in that moment as I stepped through the door that I was going to get through it because I had everyone around me. We were all going to get through it together. And that's the idea behind What Remains True. It's about the death of a small child, but ultimately it's about hope. And it's about allowing yourself to heal with the help of those that love you. So definitely not humorous women's fiction, eh? So I didn't even send it to my agent because at that point, that's not what she was looking for from me. But interestingly enough, about a year, maybe 6 months after I wrote What Remains True, my agent called me and she said, Janis, there's an editor friend of mine. She's with a very good publishing company and she is a fan of yours and she wonders if you have anything new. And I said, well, as a matter of fact, I said, but this is just another piece of advice. Be open to any surprises in your writer's life. Be open to the opportunities and possibilities that might come your way completely out of the blue. I could have said, you know what, Wendy, no, I don't have anything. But instead I said, it's nothing like I've written before. I sent her What Remains True. And she loved it, and the editor at Lake Union, she loved it too. They offered me a 2-book deal, which was really great because I already had Disassembled Me, which I'd written before What Remains True. So that was already done. And funnily enough, she loved that as well, the editor at Lake Union. So they gave me a 2-book deal. And and Lake Union is the women's fiction imprint of Amazon. So their distribution capabilities it's a traditional publisher, same thing, but you get better royalties and their distribution is unparalleled. Now, I'm excited. I'm very, very excited. What Remains True is chosen as the Kindle First for November, and that month of November, we had 145,000 downloads. And to this day, oh, thank you. To this day, there are 10,400 reviews on Amazon with a 4.2 star rating. Now, I want you to know that I tell you this with complete humility because it wasn't that way the first year, the first 6 months. I just went a little while ago, like 2 months ago. I thought it was a mistake. I was like this. I'm like, honey, this is a mistake. I got to get in touch with Amazon. It was an overwhelming success for me, and I was thrilled. And I thought they're going to make a mini series out of it, and it's super good. And okay, I no helicopter this time, maybe a limo, but like I downgraded my excitement level. But then, interestingly enough, after having this huge bestseller, #1 on Amazon, the champion editor, acquisitions editor at Lake Union, who championed my books, she loved them. She was my age. She totally got it. It was domestic suspense. It was about family drama. It was about middle-aged women with kids that were having struggles. And that's what she was. And she left Lake Union. And the acquisitions editor that came after her was 23 years old, single, and childless. Nothing against her, but she had no basis for comparison. She didn't understand what was happening with this one. The main character in All That's Left of Me is a middle-aged mother of a child with cerebral palsy and a girl who's met the wrong element. Her husband is, it's a bad situation, and she's disillusioned and she's miserable, and she just wants to escape. So this 23-year-old acquisitions editor had no idea what that was like. And she did not champion my book, and it did not sell well. And what did I do as a writer? Kept writing, yes. So, and I'll tell you though, it was a little bit difficult because I didn't know, now what? Now what do I write? But finally I settled into Finding Grace. And Finding Grace I was really, really proud of. It's told from 3 different perspectives. There's the main character, and then there's 2 other characters, multiple POVs. And I wrote it, it's sort of about an estranged mother and an adult daughter. And what I was inspired by was I had such an amazing relationship with my mother. I thought it might be interesting to write about a mother-daughter that are not tight, that are not close, and what might that look like, and what might that feel like. And I actually talked to friends because I have two of my best friends had really contentious relationships with their mothers. So I spoke to them, and I'm really, really proud of this book. And I got tremendous feedback from beta readers, and I got tremendous feedback from, not my mother, unfortunately, but from my aunt. I've never said aunt before in my life. My aunt. Sorry about that. That was very strange coming out of my mouth. So I sent it to my agent. She was aloof about it, but we knew that Lake Union had first right of refusal on my next book. So we sent it to them. Now, it kind of felt like Penguin all over again because Lake Union rejected it. They passed on it. Now, this I felt was really one of my best books up to date. And they rejected it. And then I learned later about this thing that's an actual thing that Lake Union would offer 2 book deals to their women's fiction writers and then drop them. And there is a whole podcast with a slew of former Lake Union writers that had the exact same thing happen to them. I can't explain it. I only know that that's what happened to me. So what to do? I talked to my agent. I had a really, really very unsatisfactory conversation with her. She said, Janis, I just don't know how to sell this book. This book is psychological suspense thriller with a paranormal element. How do I sell this? Well, you sell it, that's all. just do it. So she wasn't going to send it out. So I undertook to fly out to New York to meet with her. And we had a dinner and we spoke at great length. And I said, I really think you can sell this book. Let's brainstorm. And she said, yeah, let's brainstorm. How can we do this? So we came up together with a pitch. She said, you send me all of this information tomorrow morning and I will send it out. And 2 weeks later, we had a deal with Blackstone Publishing. So what I want to say about another piece of advice to you is while you need people to champion for you, sometimes you need to champion for yourself. Know when to do it and do it. Believe in your work, believe in yourself, and only good things will come out of it, for sure. So that was really great. I loved it. Blackstone was a great experience. Authentically creepy and engrossing. It came out in hardcover. It was my first hardcover book, and then it just came out in paperback. So that's my writer's journey. And here we are today. It's kind of a roller coaster, right? Lots of ups, lots of downs, but I'm still writing. And I'm going to keep writing. I'm actually at the end of a romantic suspense, which is another genre. And so I just want to talk a little bit about that. I've written in several different genres. I like writing in several different genres. If you like writing in several different genres, do it. My further advice to you is write what you're passionate about. There's chat GBT and there's Google and there's how many search engines. I wouldn't say don't write what you don't know. I'm never going to tell a writer don't write what you don't know. There's so much I've written about that I don't know anything about, but I've learned. It's a wonderful way to discover. It's a wonderful way to educate yourself. I didn't know anything about cerebral palsy. Now I know a lot about it, and the compassion that I have is tremendous. And what I've learned has given me such an eye-opening experience. So write about what you're passionate about. Write what you love. Write the story that's going to keep you coming back to your seat, okay? If you're bored with what you're writing, let it go. If you're bored with what you're writing, your reader is not going to be interested in it, right? Write what makes you happy. Write what fills your bucket and keep doing it. So I'm doing my best to live the writer's life. I get lazy, totally lazy, especially between projects. I just finished a book. That's cool. And I get frustrated. I have days where I don't even know why I'm doing it. Do you have those days? Everybody, you have those days? What are you doing it for? Yeah, it's a good question. Because if you're doing it for fame and fortune and Netflix deal, if you're doing it for the helicopter or Oprah book club, you have to do it because you're compelled to and because you love to, right? For here. I struggled for a long time after Finding Grace. I wrote a horror novel. It was a complete monster, pun intended. It was 145,000 words. Yeah, Eric's, yeah, that was a monster. And I realized, even after I really tried to go there, that it was never going to work. No matter how much you try to Frankenstein it, cut this scene and paste it here, and then you don't even recognize it anymore. And I just had to let it go. That was a big chunk of my life that I had to just let go of it. I started a YA book. I have a writing folder on my desktop that's got story beginnings, dozen story beginnings, the first page, the first 2 pages, the first 3 pages. All that's left of me and What Remains True, What Remains True particularly, I had the first 2 pages in my desktop for 6 months. And every once in a while I would open it and I would read through it. That's cool. I think there's something there, but it wasn't resonating with me. And then one day I opened the document and I read, and suddenly it just went. So never throw any story beginning away. More advice. Never throw any story beginning away. It may you can dump it out on the page and get it out of you. You got to get it out of you, and then come back to it and come back to it. And it may one day just suddenly pop. So it took a while to get to my current work in progress. I started at last NaNoWriMo. I wrote like 18,000 words, and then between November and August of this year, and then suddenly something sparked, and then now I'm on 95,000 words in, almost done. So that's my writer's journey, and this is where I am. I'm back to square one. I have cred, but you're always back to square one. As soon as you end a book, you're starting a new one, you're at square one. And it's a great place to be because there's infinite possibilities of what's going to happen. What's going to happen with the story, the actual writing of it, and what's going to happen with the story after the writing of it is finished. So right now, I'd like you to take maybe 3 minutes to talk amongst yourselves. What is your writing journey right now? Where are you? So where are you in your writing journey?
I have a novel out right now. I set it up last year to yeah, I got one more to do so I go with another book that was similar. But they're on submission.
Oh, that's good. Great. He's good.
Rewriting, so I did twice. Like this, both of them.
Okay.
So I'm rewriting first NaNoWriMo I wrote, which I've sort of came to the conclusion is sort of a series of anecdotes rather than a novel.
Right, okay.
So now it's a through line.
Oh, that's great. Well, good luck. I hope that you find an independent publisher for your work. I'm going to go over a little bit. Okay, I have a little bit more to say before we close today. See, once you get a writer started, I'm almost done talking, I promise. But I wanted to close with, and I'm going to refer to my notes a little bit more. I wanted to close with some words about how I feel about being a storyteller and living the writer's life. I've mentioned living the writer's life a couple times in this talk, but what does it really mean? It's not about being Stephen King and having a library of 100 books or owning half of Maine. It's not about getting on the bestsellers list or appearing on Kelly Clarkson. See, I've updated my references. Or being chosen for Reese Witherspoon's book club. It's not about selling the rights to your book to Netflix or having Ryan Reynolds or Julia Roberts star, although all of those things would be cool, right? And we wish for them secretly. It's about making a commitment to your craft and to the art of storytelling. It's about crossing your fingers, crossing your heart, and swearing on your life that you will tell the best story possible and that you'll do whatever it takes to make that happen. It's about having integrity and pride in your work. It's about being vulnerable. It's about opening yourself up to criticism from others and listening without ego to the people that can help you make your story better. It's about enduring harsh, sometimes soul-crushing rejection, but still finding the will to go back to your computer day after day. It's about always striving for excellence, and it's about never settling for mediocrity. It's about realizing that typing the end, which I understand is passé now, but I do it every time. And it's a success. Every time you finish a book, that's a success. But it's also about realizing that the end is not the end. It's just the beginning in a lot of ways. It's about also understanding that writing is a marathon and not a sprint. Writing is a solitary occupation. We sit alone at our desks or in our cubicles or in our caves in our pajamas, which was one of the reasons I liked the idea of being a writer, because I could write in my pajamas. But then at some point we have to share our words with others, with writing groups, editors, agents, ultimately publishers. You are all writers, so you understand this already. The writer's life is about killing your darlings. It's about trashing thousands of words and hundreds of pages and accepting that sometimes something just isn't going to work and won't ever work, no matter how much you bleed over it. Living the writer's life is also about using this talent you have, this gift you've been given, this unique voice you possess, to share that message in your heart. Because in my opinion, a story without a heart or a message is entertainment. And entertainment is wonderful. It's great. I love entertainment. But no matter what genre you write in, we as writers also have an opportunity to be evocative and thought-provoking without being insightful or hostile or political. We need that. We need that. We can have a meaningful effect on people and on how people think, how they believe. We can subtly change their minds about the things they thought they knew. And we can make them feel and laugh and cry, and we can help them heal sometimes. I just get chills saying that because it's so amazing, this gift we have as writers. It's a gift, and it's our obligation to use that gift. The writer's life is also about creating magic, about building worlds and situations that weren't there before and creating characters who become our friends. It's about cracking up over something your new friend says or tearing up over a beautiful piece of prose. It's about following the rules and then taking those rules and throwing them out the window and making up rules of your own. It's about coming up with a killer end to your chapter or a killer tagline for your book jacket. It's about sleepless nights when your characters won't shut up. And you can't stop thinking about that story. And you have to get up and you have to turn on the light and you have to write it down or type it in or whatever it is you have to do. And then you can't go back to sleep. I love those nights. My husband, not so much, but I love those nights. It's about listening and paying attention to the world around you. It's about putting down your phone and being fully present in the moment, because sometimes you see or hear that key element that you needed to unlock your novel just by paying attention. It's about knowing you have a story to tell and knowing you are the only person on the face of the earth that can tell that story. And it's really fun. I mean, okay, so I just have to tell this as a short aside. I know I'm running over time. I apologize. But when people ask me, what do you do for a living? And I say, I'm a writer. And they say, oh, that's so fun. Like giggles, like, oh, how fun. And it is fun, right? But it's also hard. It's hard to create something that wasn't there before. It's hard to create a whole story and all of these characters and all of these worlds where there was nothing before. Sometimes the words flow and sometimes they don't. And sometimes I get so frustrated I want to throw my laptop out the window and stomp on it. And sometimes I experience quiet moments of sheer terror that I don't have another story in me. Yeah, I've written 7 books, 8, 9, because 2 of them will never see the light of day, like the Frankenstein book. But I do. I still get panic. What do I? You do. You have an endless supply of stories within you. You have endless supply of stories without you, outside of you, on the outside. Okay, so the best advice I can give you is to live the writer's life, to embrace the gift you've been given, keep working hard and striving for excellence, mute the noise. Pro tip, mute the noise of other people's expectations. Mute the noise of market trends. Don't ever chase the market. What's hot now will not be hot by the time you're finished with your book. Keep sitting your butts down at the computer or on your benches with legal pads. Or whatever it is you use to write, keep writing, because we do get better with every single word, with every single sentence, paragraph, page, chapter. You get better with every single. If you have to throw out things that don't work, that's okay. You're better because of it. It can take years. Sometimes it can take decades. I'm living proof of that. But living the writer's life, telling stories that affect people, that entertain and enlighten and touch people, whether it's one person or 1 million people, can be the most rewarding life of all. Thank you so much for having me. I know, I'm very verbose. I talk for a long time, so we only have like 9 minutes for questions, but because I spoke so much and told you so much, I imagine you really don't have too many questions, or any at all, right? Yes, Scott.
I was just gonna ask, so you talked about like when you went from finishing one book and then going into the next project, what did you find helped you to build that motivation and that momentum back up going into the next project?
Vodka. So for some of those times, like I had those 2 story beginnings, the first 2 pages, and I have a ton of story beginnings. Sometimes it's just staring at the blank page and starting to write. I tend to think situationally. So it's just a situation. It's a what if. This is what I teach in Storyteller's Toolbox. It's a what if. It's, what if a woman who's hiding from the world and especially her mother has her mother show up out of the blue and say, we need to save a child. I mean, it's that, I definitely come from a character's perspective first and foremost. That's the voice that I hear first. It's always character. It's always character and something of a situation. I know where I'm going to start and I know where I'm going to end. But there are also days where between books, I don't know, and those are the days that I go, okay, I'm going to write 2 pages, or I'm just going to write. I'm just going to start writing, and then I read it back over and I go, I'm not here yet. But now I can go back and look at them, and maybe I'll be there next week or next month. Yeah. Did that answer your question?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Cool.
First of all, I haven't read your books, but I love your titles.
Oh.
And some of them seem like the flip side of the other. So that was really interesting to me. You said something interesting just now about not chasing the market or what is hot right now. Did you ever find yourself doing that? And if you did, at what point did you find that, I was chasing this, or maybe emulating that author, but now I found this is my voice, this is my voice?
Maybe if I had chased the market, I'd be a bestseller on the New York Times. No, never chase the market. It's not the right thing to do. I really, honestly, I'm being completely honest with you. I just write a story. I don't think about genre so much. I just think about the story that's trying to get out, and that's what happens. So I don't know if that answers your question. I just, everybody knows in this room, sometimes I can be working on something else. I can be very far into that something else, and something else just comes along and goes, Janis, me now, right? Me now. And then, okay, and then it comes out. So it's just about the storytelling. It really is. I mean, I write in different genres, but I'm proud of all of the stories, all of the characters. You know, you might not like humorous women's fiction. That might not be a genre you like to read, but I can be very proud of that and think probably you might like it. You know what I mean? So, yes.
Do you focus on one single project, or do you ever have a few projects going on at the same time?
I don't have that kind of bandwidth because I can only do one at a time. And I know a lot of authors, and I have a tremendous amount of respect for authors that can be working on several things at the same time. I can't get distracted. And I'm also someone that wants to go, I write linearly too. Like, I can't write the end before I write the beginning. I can't write chapter 2 before chapter 1. I can't do placeholders. Oh, I'm going to save that scene for later. If I can't write that scene today, it's not getting written. I'm not moving ahead, because everything is a build on what came before it. And I don't want to have to go back in and go, oh, wait, no, now this doesn't make sense anymore because I just put in a new scene after going all the way to the end. So I went tangential, I apologize. But no, only one project at a time. I've tried. I really have tried. But then the voices start, oh, now this character's starting to sound like this one, and that's not good, right?
So in the event one of your books does get made into a movie or a series,
Your mouth to God's ears.
That's the helicopter
a
there.
writer who prefers to actually learn screenwriting and write the script yourself, or would you want someone else to do it?
So I went to UCLA Department of Theater, Film, and Television. It was a comprehensive program, and I did learn screenwriting and playwriting, and I have written screenplays and pilots. For me, I'm 56 years old. The writers' rooms are full of young people, and I understand that. I'm not being an ageist against myself. I'm just saying that I would love to have some creative influence over what happens with my stories. I don't want them to turn them into something that I don't recognize anymore, but I'm also very happy to give feedback, not be in the writer's room, but if you allow me to have input, that's great, and show me the money. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's like a good policy, because I think with good adaptations, there's always going to be some story changes, just because of the nature, how different the two
For sure, the mediums are different, for sure. For sure, absolutely, and I can accept that.
There's a good middle ground.
I agree. I would always love to be associated with it. I'd always like to get producer credit. And I would like to be involved. And I also understand if I need to take a step back. Because then you don't want to be like, well, that's my story and you can't, and you can't do that. Because if they're really motivated to make the best story for whatever medium it is, they're going to do a better job than I am. Yes?
Are you going to finish that fourth book that you couldn't at the wrong time in your life?
It's really interesting that you asked that question. I'm deeply, heavily involved in my current work in progress. I have my next project already on the books, and then I may take a look at it. There's an interim project that was between the Say Never and Saving Nora, which was Sophie's Nuptials. All SN, if you notice, my sister's initials. And it was actually something that was going to be released chapter by chapter. Sophie's Nuptials, it was from different perspectives of all of the guests at the wedding and the bride and the groom. And that was going to be the bridge between Say Never and Saving Nora, because there's been so many years between. It's not out of the realm of possibility, because I've lived through a lot of grief. My father passed away also. I'm feeling like maybe I can be funny again, but we'll see. It's whatever story grabs me, right? Whatever grabs you. Yes.
What advice, you've given a lot of advice tonight, and I really appreciate it, particularly for this one. What advice would you give to a student who's in a third year and chasing a dream of being a writer,
Mm-hmm.
but pursuing a different major that she enjoys? I think. Sorry to speak for her. What advice would you give to help her on that path to be a writer, but also graduate?
So my son also wants to be a writer, and the advice that I gave to him is, honey, absolutely, I completely support you 100%, but you've got to earn a living. So, and it's very practical advice. But this is what I talked about a little bit. If you have that fire in your belly, write write and write and write and write and keep writing. Don't ever give up the dream. If it's really important to you and you're compelled to do it, then you will find the time no matter what else is going on in your life. And I would say pursue that dream. But also the practical side of it is you must also make money. And you can at writing. Ultimately, you can after 7 books. And it may blow up big. Hey, dream big. So dream big and plan ahead. Does that help? But definitely write. Keep writing for sure. For sure. Absolutely, because it can happen for everybody. For everybody. And you don't have to be on the New York Times bestseller list to earn a living at writing. You don't.
Third year college or where do you go to college?
And do you mind if I ask what you're majoring in? Well, there you go. The writing and history? Woohoo! That's great. So you can use both, for sure.
Yeah, you can't get a job with either of them.
No, don't listen to him.
Is there a writing club or anything at the school? Check it out.
Yeah. She had her hand up and then you?
Thanks. I'm really impressed with this Oregon Writers Guild here in Bend, but is there a town that you, or like a guild, or a city that you feel is very, has a lot going on that really helps writers, or like has a lot of, is just a great place for writers?
New York City is really the literary capital, but that's not really as much the case anymore because of the internet. I think the online writing community, I think it's finding people that are like-minded as you. This does not apply to anybody in this room, but I'm sure we have all had bad experiences in writers groups where ego comes into play, or I don't want to say anything nice about yours because then mine isn't as good. It's just finding the people. I found my tribe with the Southern California Writers Conference and the Southern California Writers Association. So it's just, this is as good a place as any.
Is there like an online like database of groups like this?
I'm sure there is. I'm sure there is. Yeah. But I don't think that there's, and nothing sticks out to me personally. I couldn't say. I can only say from where I live. Yeah. Yes.
What does a daily writing practice look like for you?
Well, if I'm not being lazy, it takes me about between 5 and 10,000 words to really get enmeshed in a project. And so that 5 to 10,000 words, however long that might take, might look like Janis sits down at the computer and Janis looks at the screen, and then Janis gets up and goes and sits on the couch, and I never sit on the couch, or goes and files her taxes or does her laundry or whatever, and then comes back. So, but once I get that inciting incident going, and that's for me, I like getting that going really, really soon. So once I'm about to jump into Act 2, then I'm cranking out, and then I'm just getting to the computer every chance I get. Now, I had a teenager who graduated high school. I was very involved with her senior year. That's where I wanted to be. That was my priority. So I didn't write every day. And I was lucky if I got to write once a week, but that was a conscious decision that I made, that she's never going to be here again, and she's going to go off into the world. And I was a booster mom. I was vice president of the thing, and that's what I wanted to do. But once she graduated, I was at my computer every day. And I do a word count. I strive for 2,000 words a day. Sometimes I only bleed out 500. So it just depends on the day. And some days I can do 5,000. It just depends really on the day. If I get 1,500 done, I'm happy, because those were 1,500 words that weren't there yesterday. And then there are days off where you can't, where you've got a wedding or you've got a, whatever. And I just give myself grace. I'm writing as much as I can.
Question from our viewers at home: why don't you like backstory?
Oh, okay. That's a really good question. So my problem with backstory is that quite often, and we do advanced submissions, we read lots of manuscripts, and backstory used incorrectly grinds a story to a halt. Backstory is just what it's saying. It's going back in time. I teach about forward momentum. You want
the whole point of writing a story is for people to turn the pages. Keep giving them reasons to turn the page to find out what happens next. If you stop the forward momentum of what's happening and go back 10 years ago to make your reader understand why this dish is so important and why she's crying so hard, then you need to do it actively. So it's mostly about backstory done incorrectly or inefficiently. It can enhance your story if it's done well. I like using dialogue. We'll talk about this in Storyteller's Toolbox if anybody is going to attend. Backstory is best used through dialogue, because dialogue is happening in the present and it's active. So that's what I would say. Try to use that. But also it's also genre. Because if you're in like a fast-paced thriller, you don't want to go back. If you're doing sort of historical drama, then you can be allowed a little bit more time. But you don't want your reader to ever have a reason to put your book down and stop reading, unless they absolutely have to or they can't keep their eyes open. And I know for me, when I hit the end of a chapter and then it goes back 20 years, that's where I put the book down, I go make a sandwich. So.
All right, so those of us who are here and talking to you at home are going to hang out and have wonderful snacks and mingle. You should see the food that Amanda brought. And we're going to.
It looks scrumptious.
And we'll continue to talk to Janis and to each other. And thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.